So first things first, obviously we have to start with the whole chicken, which ours come with the necks inside. So got to remove that boy, set it to the side. That's perfect for socks, soups, all of those good things. So the first thing that we're going to do is make an incision on the side of either leg to separate it from the breast. So I'm going to go in here, and it's really important to make sure you have a super sharp knife, which I will also say my two favorite go-tos for this are having like a 6-inch chef's knife as well as a full size. This will be for some of our heavier duty tasks where we really have to break through some of the bones. So I'm going to cut through all of that skin, and this is going to help me expose the thigh and the leg and separate it completely from the breast. Obviously, be careful not to cut yourself. As you can see, already got some wounds. Part of how it goes, right? And when you're looking up resources on how to butcher a whole bird, there are going to be a million different ways that you can do things. And this is really just my personal preference to get the full 8 pieces out of a chicken. But you can do things like airline breast. You can just do 4 pieces cut up, which we'll talk through some of those cuts as we go through. But next step, we're going to flip this bad boy over, and I'm actually going to apply pressure down here to the thigh and separate that joint. So when you're doing it, you'll feel it's really light. I barely applied any pressure to that. And this is just going to help us be able to separate it. So now we're tossing it back over. From my overhead here, you can see this is the actual head of the thigh bone. So now I'm just going to take my knife and go straight down through that joint. Separate all this out. So now this is what we call a leg quarter, where we have the full thigh and the drumstick attached, that little guy. We're gonna do the same thing on the other side. Find where we separated that thigh bone out. And this is super easy to do and really helps you make the most of your chicken if you're not just wanting to cook whole chickens all of the time. So now that we have our leg quarters, we're going to do the same thing. I like to still manipulate it a little bit to try and get that joint to separate so it's easier to go through. But you can kind of see there's a pretty clear delineation between this is thigh and this is drumstick. So we're just gonna go down through that. As you can see, I mean, not much work at all, especially if you have a good sharp knife. Do the same thing with our other side. It'll let me go through it. This guy just doesn't want to let go. There we go. Now we have our 2 drumsticks, 2 thighs, and next we're going to move to the wings. So again, there's a few different ways that you can do this. You'll see people where they actually basically dangle from the wing and the breast and just kind of cut around. Depending on the chicken, it's kind of, I approach it depending on the specific anatomy of the chicken. And this guy, his wing's pretty flat out and closer to the bottom. Sometimes you'll find them where they're kind of in the midline of the breast and it's harder to just chomp down through onto the cutting board. But today that's what we're gonna go for. I'm gonna still manipulate that joint a little bit, try to get it to separate. Maybe. We might have to swap to our bigger knife. There we go. Had to change up plans, and that's okay, especially as you're learning this skill. It definitely takes time to get better at it, make it work, and ultimately your food will still taste the same and will still be delicious, especially because it's our chicken. But it's all a process, and I think that's part of why so many people stray away from cooking, because it really takes a lot to learn, especially if you have not learned these skills as you were growing up. So there we go. See, I got some breast on that. That's okay. Now we're going to do the other wing. This guy's also not really wanting to come out. You know, and it's not a race. I find that whenever I make cooking a race is when I hurt myself. Go at your own pace. Figure it out. There we go. So now we have the full wings, which as you can see here, we have the drumette and the flat. I like to separate them out because I don't like drums, but we still make them all together. So you'll have to start by kind of cutting through the skin because you see there's a lot here. So we're gonna cut on through that. just go on through. And you can take the tips off if you want to. I like to leave them on. Some people will actually just skip the wings entirely and use them straight for stock because they are full of a lot of that collagen and protein. But I love wings, so I would never skip them. Now, our last thing is the breast. So we have the option to either do a bone-in or a boneless here. I prefer boneless, and I think a lot of people do as well. And some people, if you're looking at resources on the internet, will tell you to try and remove the wishbone, which is up here at the top. I don't really think that's super necessary. So what I like to do, get my guy in the center of the board. You can see right here, there is that clear midline on top of the breast. I'm gonna go ahead and kind of cut into that, which the skin makes it a little bit tricky, but if you really use the tip of that knife, it's easier to get in there. We want to be gentle to not take these apart, but as you can see, here's that kind of center bone of cartilage separating out the breast, and I'm just going to use the tip of my knife to just follow that angle of the ribs, which is pretty concave, and just take it straight off the bone. We'll have to go through some of this extra skin, which again, this is where a good sharp knife comes in handy. So there is one breast. Now we'll get the other guy. Now here we have our leftover carcass. There obviously is still some meat on here. I think it's totally okay to leave that on there because it's going to help bulk up your stock, your bone broth, make it a lot better. But so as you can see, let me set this where I will not throw it on the floor again. Yes, or that. We have 2 breasts, which also I'll flip this one over and I'll show you. You can see here, this is the tenderloin, which you can actually just really easily separate. And so this will give your breast a more even density all throughout so that it'll cook a lot more evenly. And this is also a good time if you want to slice your breast in half so that you have chicken breast cutlets, which are, again, thinner, cook more evenly, are easy to use. But that's kind of up to you. You can also remove the skin from them if you want to, any of the cuts. And I will say that if you are cooking for more than 2 people, I would recommend breaking down 2 birds at a time. One, you're getting extra practice, but then you're also able to divide out enough cuts to make into a whole dinner to feed your family. So then if I were doing 2 birds, I would have 4 thighs, the extra wings, 4 drumsticks, and then the breast usually can be separated out into 2 different meals.